Thank you to my channel members and Ko-fi supporters that make these videos possible. You can also support me by buying a deck tech on my weekly Tuesday and Sunday streams. More info in the video description. Hello everyone! Magic, what a game, huh? I mean, it's rare a game holds up for over 30 years like Magic has. Naturally, over the course of that time, formats come and go and cards rise and fall from prominence. I want to analyze those cards through the lens of Commander, looking at every boogeyman and staple must-include card that once was, that no longer is. I reached out to my Discord to help get a litmus of cards in the consciousness that once were more prevalent but no longer are for this video, and got inundated with responses. The first major reply to the request for notable previous staples was from Misty, mentioning Deadeye Navigator. I decided to Google about this one, knowing how strong the opinions were back then, and sure enough, I came across a time capsule of a Change.org post. Deadeye Navigator. Few words have the power to cause such tension and dread at a table. Of course, few cards also have the power to warp an entire game around their very existence. Deadeye Navigator needs to go. When talking about Commander bans, one topic that comes up frequently is the infamous Deadeye Navigator. It divides the community pretty clearly. On one side, its defenders say it's a disruptible combo machine that can't stand up to hate. On the other, it's a format-breaking, extremely defensible nightmare. Let me put it into some perspective. Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. Very powerful card. It flies! It hits hard, it makes the defender lose permanence, and it protects itself very well. Very powerful card. Again, he already mentioned that, but we need to reiterate that, of course. Not as broken as Deadeye Navigator. Even Emrakul needs a couple of turns to really get menacing. Deadeye Navigator can start causing havoc from the second it drops. Here's what a ban of Deadeye Navigator will accomplish. People will actually have to work for their combos. Players will have to actually work for their combos. Tournament spikes will leave the format in droves, possibly to French Commander, where they belong. Freeing up space in this casual format to have casual players more likely have casual matches with other casual players. A lot of casual there. Your signature sows the RC that you won't stand for this menace in the format any longer. Let your voice be heard. Make the rules committee have a serious reevaluation of their ban list. Hashtag ban Deadeye Navigator. Very important to note that this post was a decade ago. Genuine question. When was the last time you've seen Deadeye Navigator in a game of Commander? Okay, chances are with how sizable my audience is, anecdotally some of you have seen it fairly recently. No doubt it can be a strong card in the right shell, but there's no way the person who made this post could have realized what was coming down the pipeline in terms of designs a literal decade following their post. That makes this 8-mana investment of Deadeye into a win look cute. I'm sure Deadeye was quite slippery and annoying. Older Commander players can probably attest to this petition not being entirely an overreaction, but nowadays a Deadeye Navigator ban would be totally out of left field. Anyway, there's a lot more to be said about Deadeye, but legitimately that change petition made this whole video happen, and I want to move on to talking about ramp pieces that have fallen out of favor. Remember when you'd watch Commander gameplay either on YouTube or from your friends when you're first getting into the format, and one of them would play Burnished Heart and explode ahead into that casual game? This part of the video is dedicated to that. It's not just my fellow elk here that has fallen off the face of the earth either. I know we live in a world of arcane signets and reprinted into the ground talismans, but I remember back when Talisman of Impulse and Friends, especially Talisman of Progress, were not budget cards. Commander Sphere was one of the better rocks for multicolor decks, and before that, Darksteel Ingot was playable. Digging around for old media about Commander Ramp, I came across a video by a now defunct channel named Mythic MTG Tech. This video is so old that he references Primeval Titan being a fresh ban at the start of it. At number 10 on his list was Solemn Simulacrum, who in my opinion is the king of outclassed EDH cards. Solemn still has a home in some decks that can flicker it a ton or synergize with its artifactness. It's definitely not awful, but man oh man, is it not a staple anymore. Looking at the comments of this ramp video, I found some funny comments as well, recommending Cage Sun as a ramp spell that should have been included in the video. 6 mana for a doubler is really just not worthwhile today for most lists unless you're cheating it into play, copying it somehow, or doing some crazy X-Spell deck outside of black, red, or green. To think of it as ever being a staple is really crazy when you look at Magic today. Paging back over the Discord suggestions, Phyrexian Arena was a card that was mentioned by Eve, and yeah, this card really isn't worth much anymore. To me, Dark Confidant or Night's Whisper would be a much better first include for card draw, and those cards existed back then. To be fair, back in the heyday of Phyrexian Arena, they weren't balling with permanents like Iara First of Locthwain or Bolas's Citadel. My modern hatred of Arena that was still applicable back then is that it's simply just an awful late game top deck. It's only really good on turn 4 or before, because to me, I don't feel like I'm getting my cards worth out of it until I at least draw 4 or 5 cards out of it. And that payoff would put us firmly into turn 8 or 9 where we slam it by turn 4. Way too slow, at least for the tables I enjoy playing at, which mostly situate themselves at bracket 3. It's hard to separate from these Discord recommendations which ones were actually staple cards and which ones were just pet cards of a younger, more new player. But keeping with the theme of card draw here for another second, local Trash Panda's recommendation of Fact or Fiction I know to be the truth. Fact or Fiction is a fine card, but no doubt its appeal has waned over the years. And no, I'm not just saying that because Gifts got unbanned. Card draw has gotten so nuts recently that I'm not sure if I've ever thought about adding Fact or Fiction to a deck ever. At least not in the past 3 years. Just look how hard it's mogged by something like Stock Up. Even if you want a more budget alternative, if you want FOF, you probably also care about your graveyard in some way, and if you do, then Dig Through Time is just purely the better card, even when only partially delved. It's banned in formats for a reason. It's not a stretch to call this a blue demonic tutor in the right deck. In the text channel I made for this video, Library of Alex's suggestion of Mind's Dilation made me have a Mind's Dilation the moment I read it, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I vividly remember this card being a pain point among many players half a decade ago. Maybe it's just a false memory, but I swear this card was everywhere when I started playing. Another card advantage engine that was recommended a long while ago for mono white and mono red decks especially was Mind's Eye. Mentioning that card probably just activated a ton of lost memories in a few of you like sleeper agents. This card was a 5-drop artifact that let you mirror your opponent's card draws if you paid 1 mana for each. Nowadays, we have incredible options for white, and red gets a ton of impulse draw. But I actually did consider Mind's Eye for a deck recently, funnily enough, though it was a restriction deck of only being old border cards, so it probably doesn't count. Now, let's talk a bit about removal. 2 cards recommended in the Discord by Cornfrosty and Salen Cross were Krosan Grip and Return to Dust. I generally agree with Krosan Grip being a lost staple, though I know plenty of people who swear by it, but I've used Return to Dust as recently as a few years ago in Sephara. I do think it's still one of the best in show cards for exiling objects. Even Crushed Contraband can fall short if you need to hit 2 of the same type in my opinion, though the sorcery speed nature of Return to Dust is definitely a rough point. If you want the hardest evidence that the game of Magic is speeding up, and I do say that like we're hard pressed for it, but I think the most exemplary showing of it is Hero's Downfall. A card I consider stone cold unplayable, by the way, and Murder. These cards used to be incredibly prevalent of EDH, but now are unheard of due to cards like Bitter Triumph, Feed the Cycle, Heartless Act. We've always had Go for the Throat, but it feels like every set we get a 2-mana black instant kill spell with the set's mechanic stapled on it, making all the 3-mana ones unplayably bad. Well, that does it for this video. Tell me, what cards do you feel like were a menace before that you really just can't justify running now? Can you find any funny time capsule-esque posts about it? Share in the comments below if you can, and until next time, bye! Flies! I'm sorry, this is sending me, it's incredible.